The abandoned asylum. The night was cold, and the wind howled through the trees as if warning of the horrors that lay ahead. A group of friends, Sam, Lisa, Mark, and Jenny, stood at the edge of the old, crumbling asylum. Its silhouette loomed against the moonlit sky, windows like dark, empty eyes staring back at them. "Are we really doing this?" Lisa asked, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. "Of course," Mark said, holding up his flashlight. "We've talked about this for months. It's now or never." They pushed open the rusted gate, its screech echoing through the night. The asylum, abandoned for decades, was a notorious local legend. Whispers of restless spirits and eerie happenings had kept most people away, but not them. They were thrill seekers, always in search of the next big scare. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. Peeling wallpaper, broken furniture, and scattered debris spoke of a place forgotten by time. They navigated the dark hallways, the beams of their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Every creak and groan of the old building made their hearts race. "I think we should split up," Mark suggested. "We'll cover more ground that way." "Are you crazy?" Jenny exclaimed. "We stick together. We don't know what's in here." "Fine," Mark sighed, "but let's at least check out the basement. That's where they say the real activity happens." Reluctantly, they made their way down the creaky stairs to the basement. The temperature dropped noticeably, and the atmosphere grew even more oppressive. They stepped into a large, dimly lit room filled with old medical equipment and rusty gurneys. Shadows danced on the walls, playing tricks on their minds. "Did you hear that?" Sam whispered, his eyes wide with fear. A soft, mournful wail echoed through the room. They froze, listening intently. The sound grew louder, more distinct, until it was unmistakably the sobbing of a woman. "Hello," Lisa called out, her voice shaking. "Is anyone there?" The sobbing stopped abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. They exchanged nervous glances, their fear mounting. Suddenly, a door on the far side of the room creaked open, revealing a dark corridor. "We have to check it out," Mark said, his curiosity getting the better of him. They walked cautiously down the corridor, the walls lined with old patient rooms. As they passed each one, they caught glimpses of ghostly figures, patients in tattered gowns, their faces twisted in agony. The air grew colder, and the sense of dread intensified. They reached the end of the corridor and entered a large, circular room. In the center stood a massive, old operating table, stained with dark, dried blood. The room was filled with a palpable sense of malevolence. "We need to leave," Jenny said, panic rising in her voice. "Now!" Before anyone could respond, the door slammed shut behind them. They spun around, their flashlights flickering. The room plunged into darkness, and they heard the sound of heavy breathing all around them. "Who's there?" Mark demanded, his bravado fading. A figure stepped into the dim light, a woman in a nurse's uniform, her eyes hollow and empty. She raised a finger to her lips, a silent command for silence. Behind her, the ghostly figures of patients began to emerge from the shadows, their faces contorted in pain and rage. The friends huddled together, terror gripping them. The nurse began to speak, her voice a chilling whisper. "You should not have come here. This place is cursed. and now so are you. The ghostly patients advanced, their hands reaching out, grasping at the friends. Panic set in, and they bolted for the door, desperately trying to escape. The door flew open, and they stumbled out into the corridor, running for their lives. They didn't stop until they were outside, gasping for breath. The asylum stood silent and foreboding behind them, as if mocking their escape. "We're never coming back here," Lisa said, her voice shaky. The others nodded in agreement, their faces pale and haunted by what they had seen. They left the asylum grounds, the memory of that night forever etched in their minds. But as they walked away, none of them noticed the ghostly figure of the nurse watching them from a window, her hollow eyes filled with a promise. "You will be back." The mirror. Anna had always been drawn to antique shops. There was something about the aged wood, the scent of history lingering in the air, and the promise of hidden treasures that excited her. On a rainy Saturday afternoon, she found herself wandering into a small, dimly lit shop on the outskirts of town. The sign outside read "Curiosities and Relics." Inside, the shop was cluttered with old furniture, dusty books, and peculiar trinkets. As she made her way through the maze of items, a large, ornate mirror caught her eye. It stood about 6 feet tall, framed in intricately carved dark wood, depicting scenes of what looked like mythical creatures and twisted vines. The glass was slightly fogged with age, but Anna could still see her reflection clearly. The shopkeeper, an elderly woman with piercing blue eyes, noticed Anna's interest. "Ah, the mirror," she said, her voice raspy. "It's been here for as long as I can remember. They say it's cursed." Anna laughed nervously. "Cursed? How so?" The shopkeeper leaned in closer. "They say whoever owns the mirror sees things that aren't really there, shadows in the night, reflections that move on their own. Some say it drives people mad." Intrigued and a bit amused by the old woman's tale, Anna decided to buy the mirror. Despite the shopkeeper's warnings, she couldn't resist its eerie charm. She carefully transported it home and placed it in her bedroom. That night, as she was getting ready for bed, Anna stood in front of the mirror, brushing her hair. She couldn't help but admire its craftsmanship, the way the wood seemed almost alive in the dim light. Suddenly, she thought she saw something move in the reflection. She turned around quickly, but her room was empty. Laughing at herself, she chalked it up to her imagination and went to sleep. Over the next few days, Anna started to feel uneasy. She would catch glimpses of movement in the mirror out of the corner of her eye. At first, it was just a shadow here, a flicker there. But soon, the reflections became more distinct. She saw figures standing behind her, their faces obscured in darkness. Whenever she turned around, there was no one there. One night, unable to sleep, Anna sat up in bed, staring at the mirror. The room was quiet, save for the ticking of her clock. As she watched, the surface of the mirror seemed to ripple, and a face emerged from the glass. It was a pale, gaunt face with hollow eyes, staring directly at her. Anna screamed and bolted out of her room, running to her friend's house next door. She banged on the door until her friend, Sarah, answered, groggy and confused. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, eyes wide with concern. "The mirror. There's something in the mirror," Anna gasped, Sarah, though skeptical, agreed to go back with Anna. They cautiously entered the bedroom, finding everything seemingly normal. The mirror stood silently in its place. Sarah approached it, peering into the glass. "I don't see anything, Anna. Maybe you were just dreaming." Anna shook her head vehemently. "No, I saw it. There was a face." Sarah sighed. "Why don't we just cover it for now? We'll figure it out in the morning." They draped a blanket over the mirror and left the room. That night, Anna slept on the couch, too afraid to be near the mirror. She finally fell into a restless sleep, only to be awakened by a cold breeze. She sat up, heart pounding, and saw the blanket on the floor, the mirror uncovered. In the darkness, the mirror's surface seemed to pulse and shift. Anna felt a cold hand on her shoulder. She turned around slowly, and there, standing behind her, was the figure from the mirror. Its hollow eyes bored into hers, a sinister smile spreading across its face. Anna tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure reached out, its hand icy cold, and pulled her toward the mirror. She struggled, but her strength was no match for the apparition. As she was dragged closer, the surface of the mirror began to ripple like water. The last thing she saw was her own terrified reflection, merging with the glass. The next morning, Sarah found Anna's house empty. The mirror stood silently in the bedroom, its glass reflecting only the room behind it. Anna was never seen again. The mirror, however, found its way back to the antique shop, waiting for its next owner. And so, the mirror's curse continues, drawing in the curious, the unsuspecting, and the brave, forever trapping them in its cold, glassy depths.